I'm going to ask you, I think most umpires can always remember this straight away as an answer. What's your most sort of toughest or maybe intimidating challenge as an umpire when you've gone through, the different progressions and, there's always that information in your brain of confidence and then doubt about your decisions and learning to hold your ground. What are your opinions on that with your own experience?
Certainly when I started umpiring, and as I'm sure most umpires learn, you've got to start being able to back up the calls that you make and be able to justify why you called them, or like why you didn't call something even. The most intimidating thing about umpiring that I've found is player disputes and needing to discipline the players on court. And so the toughest scenario that I've ever faced is I literally got badged a week before, and it was my first final that I did umpire, and you just don't realise how much the cap claws come out in a final situation, and they went to extra time and they lost, and they literally half the team approached us and just sort of vented their like they were just furious, and I think they tried to take it out on the umpires, and that was really intimidating.
What did you do and how did you handle it?
Well, I didn't really speak back to them as such. I sort of let them talk, and it was like when they started almost abusing us. They didn't abuse us, but they questioned our qualifications, that kind of thing. And it was like, well, no, hang on a second. We are qualified umpires, and but then my other co-umpire sort of took over.
So, do you feel that the training that you've done online was, one of the things that bridged the gap in taking away any fear in your training, or?
Certainly, the material that they gave us really helped learning the discipline, and I think. The thing that I really liked about the umpire training program was how much emphasis they had on the discipline procedures. Just knowing, in this scenario, yes, you have to do this, or in this scenario, you have to do this. And we had a few meetings with yourself, Claire, and some of the umpire developers on how to discipline players on court, and we actually had to stand up and practice saying the actual words, and I thought that was really beneficial. It's not very often that knowing other umpires' discipline is something that sort of is left alone, and I don't think there's enough training in disciplining umpires, and it certainly gave me the confidence knowing that a co-umpire will discipline the same sort of actions that I will discipline, and you get that support knowing that if you don't do something, then things can get out of hand, but if you do something, then the players themselves will respect you for actually standing up against someone who's disputing an umpire or playing really dangerous play and that kind of thing.
Because what's interesting is that if you look in that rule book, the AANA rule book, there is an enormous amount of warning systems and discipline areas, and in the last 4 years the new dispute with an umpire rule came in. So in actual fact you're being trained on all the rules.
And I think normal rules.
That's right. And I think that's definitely something that as an umpire myself, I compare when you go into traditional netball where there is a coach that is the intermediate, communicator of the game between the interpretations of the rules by a qualified umpire and then someone that's playing that doesn't know as much and in context to their own body movements. That bridge is made, whereas in social netball that role doesn't exist.
Yes.
And there is a need to actually be very clear about why you need those rules, and we don't make those up. They're actually in that rule book, and I've always been very puzzled as to how those rules actually came about, because it makes me wonder, going back before I started netball in 1970s, I think it was, when I was about 5. What happened to get such a heavy discipline? What were the women in the 60s doing, or the 50s?
Right.
Because they've been in there all that time.
Yeah,
But when you look at the use of them, would you say you discipline a lot?
I discipline when I need to.
Is that a lot though? I mean, would you be doing it every week or?
Well, it depends on the competition as well. So at the moment I'm umpiring a ladies competition, and most of them have come through sort of coach netball, and so they know what calls should be made, and they'll hold their tongue and ask questions when they're supposed to. Whereas if you umpire a social mixed competition where boys have come in from a football background or a basketball background, where there is a bit more, I believe, I'm not sure, there is a bit more give as to talking back to a referees and their decisions, that's when I'll have to discipline a lot more. Yeah.
Is there any time and a moment where it comes to using any rules in the netball rule book where you're kind of hesitant to use them, or are you just clear now that you've developed into a qualified umpire to say, this is my job, this is a service I'm providing, and I'm happy to do it?
Oh, for sure. Because I've just started, I've done some umpiring with, girls who they're badged, but they were trained when they were a lot younger, and they've only picked up a whistle because they need a bit of extra cash and that kind of thing. And I was talking to one of them, and they were like, I'm really scared of this girl. Like, I feel like I don't want to call anything against her because she's going to eat me alive, kind of thing. And I was like, you know what, send her my way. I'll put her in a spot.
And that's quite different, because when you first came to us for the training, I'd have to say, out of all the years that we've trained anyone, you have been the shyest. Yet you're one of the most successful and well-complimented staff members we've ever had.
Oh, there you go.